Hi, my name is David Wright. I'm the membership chair of the Trailblazers of Broward County, native Fort Lauderdalean, Broward County, born in Providence Hospital, and I'm here to support this particular project as we go throughout the city of Fort Lauderdale, experiencing what it was like back in the day.
I'm Willie Rhett, born and raised here in Fort Lauderdale. I graduated of Dillon High School 1960 class, Panthers. Well, you had Dr. Sistrunk, that was my birth doctor. He was the one that brought me here. He and Nurse Williams was mine. She was the nurse at the time that I was born, 1942. He had a place over on 5th Avenue, 5th Street. Dr. Sistrunk, one memory everyone remember of him, he always walked around with a cigar in his mouth, never was lit, but he always chewed on it.
So this part of 10th Avenue, there were other homes and things in this area?
But there was the old home, like the ones over here on this, in the west, right beyond 5th Street. Mm-hmm. There were some row houses over here. There were homes down here. And down there where the fenced-in area, mm-hmm. That was the teacher's house over there. Her name was Mrs. Waite. She taught school at Dillon.
Okay. And as we've heard in the past, Fort Lauderdale was full of mangoes, wild. You knew all the upper cherry, mulberry, cherries. You guys knew everything, right?
You had the oranges. You didn't need to go to the store. All you needed was just be a kid, be out in the street. And you would eat all day long. Your parents had to do anything for you.
Kumquats, Chinese plums.
Yeah. One thing with the guavas, you had to be careful with the guavas now. And the cherries, there were worms in them. So you had to open these things up. Make sure there was no worms before you.
Well, that was a protein, right?
Yeah. I don't know about that.
So this area right here, this was the historic Little Joe's Tavern or Little Joe's nightclub. I know we was not old enough to hang out in those places, but
so this 10th Avenue Little Joe's was right there. Mm-hmm. I used to always wonder what was going on there. And also behind Little Joe's now. Well, that was what Little Joe? That was Melody Bar. Melody Bar. Like on Saturdays, at certain time, they would show movies back then. I mean, they would have.
Now this area here was 6th Street Drugs and all of the other shops, Moss, Fish Market. I mean, this is another area that was thriving.
Exactly.
And Bass Brothers across the street. And, oh man, this area here was
thriving.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yeah. And you were saying the Little Palace was over here?
The Little Palace was over there. You had the Big Savoy, the nightclub was right there.
The zoning started to change where businesses and storefronts were primarily on the Sistrunk corridor, and that's mostly on the west end. We'll see that some more later. Right here we have the historic West Side Gazette. Now that came later, right?
That came later.
In the 70s.
Yeah, his father started, Levi started it.
Yeah.
Levi Henry.
Levi Henry Sr. and his wife, yes. Yeah, they started that. Now you said Mizell used to have
Mizell was right. Mizell and LD's had a service station. Mizell was right over there also before they moved further west.
So this is 7th Avenue and Sistrunk.
Right here, that's where the Melody Bar was.
Okay.
And you had shotgun houses
all
further to the south. Because I was raised up down there, there were 3 or 4 of them. And we lived in the middle house.
Now, explain shotgun houses.
Shotgun houses. You can look through the front doors and look straight through the back.
So if you stand in the front and you shoot a shotgun, it goes straight through?
Straight through. All the rooms on one side, you know.
Oh boy.
And next door to us, you had the people lived there. They had these tongue and groove walls that separate one side from another.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you could take the knot out of one of these, out of the wall. You can peep through the other side.
So you had to be careful of peeking in the next room.
That's right.
And now we're approaching what was the historic Fifth Avenue.
Fifth Avenue. That was the place.
When we were coming up, this was the most thrivingest area in Fort Lauderdale, correct?
That is correct. You most definitely so, David. Along this corridor, up Fifth Avenue, you had the movie theater. Continue going south. You had nightclubs. You had restaurants. You had barbershops. You had clothing stores. You had sundries. The funeral home. You had churches. Everything was along this Fifth Avenue.
That was the most popular area in Fort Lauderdale.
During that time, yes, it was.
So this would be the ideal historical district of the black community at that time.
Fifth Avenue. Sistrunk, which we used to call the 6th Street at the time, came later after things started moving further west. See, because Sistrunk only went, the road was only paved up to 9th Avenue at one point. Later on, they stopped paved from 9th Avenue further west.
So you mean west of 9th Avenue was a dirt road?
Well, it wasn't really a dirt, but it wasn't.
A single lane.
It was a single lane. And it wasn't paved.
But this was actually the spot. So that's what galvanized everybody to this section. It was more developed.
Yes,
and
it was.
Had all the businesses.
It had all the businesses. I mean, you couldn't go really across the track to do your shopping over there. I mean, you couldn't buy any clothes over there. If you did buy any, you couldn't try it on. You couldn't take it back. When you did buy it, I mean, you had everything that we needed was here.
So the tailors, the dressmakers, the different shops, all of that was in this area.
We had the dry cleaning, the shoe repair shop. You had everything right that we needed was here between Sistrunk and 2nd Street, going south. I mean, yes.
Within those 4 blocks. Awesome.
We had everything there.
Victory Theater, man, that was one of the places I can remember my first time going to the movie theaters as a kid. I think it was a 20 cent or 10 cent to get in there. And every movie they had the cartoons that came on before the main event, the main feature film. You remember that?
I remember that. You also had a weekly serial that you've seen. There's something like Raiders of the Lost Ark now. They would do certain things and then they had a place where they might get in trouble, so you had to wait the next week to see how you got out of this situation.
Oh, okay, so they know how to get you to come back.
That's right.
So a lot has changed over time, as we know. With time, there will be change.
A lot has changed.
Yeah. Some would say for the better. I mean, this community, we've seen the growth exponentially. And especially now, where we are right now with high rises, and every corner you look, there's an 8-10-story building being constructed. But this is another significant spot here. This is the Sankofa Monument.
The 2nd Avenue right here.
Yeah, this was another part of the heart of the city. But this Sankofa Monument, this was something that the Trailblazers had erected under the leadership of Mr. Beauregard Cummings.
Yes.
And as you know, the African proverb of the Sankofa bird tells us about looking forward as moving forward while we look behind and never forget our past.
Right.
So absolutely a staple now in this northwest section as we goes right to the boundaries of what we call the old black or colored section, which was between the railroad tracks, pretty much, right?
That is correct on that.
This is one of the railroad tracks, and as we continue to trek this landscape, we'll see the other end of the railroad tracks where the predominantly black neighborhood existed.
Yes. This park right here at the time, growing up, was a softball diamond that my mother, my aunt, and some other young ladies played softball right here.
I hear they were outstanding.
They were good.
World class.
They were good.
What was the name of the team?
The Fort Lauderdale Orange Sox.
Fort Lauderdale Orange Sox. And I hear they would draw crowds of people, and this was a real hot spot.
That is correct.
So a little bit about that railroad track. Could you go across that track after dark?
I wouldn't venture across that track after dark.
Well, those were the times where you were segregated to a certain neighborhood, a certain community.
That is correct.
You could only go down across that track to go to work or go do some business and get back on the other side of town, right?
You better have a special reason for being over there.
Well, what would happen?
Mr. Charlie had to give you an order, give you a paperwork saying you can be over there after dark. But other than that, you couldn't be over there.
And what would happen? What were the consequences?
What you had to, during that time, you had, what was it, Clark Brothers? Jane Clark?
The sheriffs?
You had the sheriff to take you back. Might have you down to the jailhouse. You couldn't be over here after dark.
Now, these are some other businesses that came later. I remember this business across the street. We're at 2nd Avenue on Sistrunk. There was a business there called the Freeze, and now it's a still establishment. It used to be a gas station and a store. Now it's just a store. And then we have Sistrunk Market, which is a new edifice that's been established here. What, in the last 4 years?
Right.
And have you ventured over there at all?
Hell, no, I haven't gone yet at all.
Yeah, some of these newer establishments. You were saying earlier, you rarely get into the city now. It's too congested for you.
Well, not really. I don't have any really reason for coming over here now. Other than I may come to the YMCA down there. I might come to church at my wife's church. But other than that, I don't. Or to my aunt. But other than that, I have no reason for coming across over here.
We had some other cleaners and stuff here as well, right? And then you said Bass Brothers was on the other side. Yeah.
There was another barber shop. My wife's uncle had a barber shop right over in this area right here. All this back here with Allen Apartments back here.
And on the other side were the Rawls.
Right.
Another prominent family, Attorney Rawls, and his family has that. I think they still own that house there today. Well, across the street over here was where Mizell had their photo studio.
Well, that was the Johnson place right here.
Now, that was a gas station and a house there?
Yeah, that was the Johnson. She had a service station and that too.
Eula Johnson. Yes, Eula Johnson, who now the beach is named after her and Dr. Mizell. Right, Dr. Von Mizell and Eula Johnson.
Yeah, I remember going to Miss Eula Johnson one night, get some gas. Gas only like about 25 cents a gallon, but I didn't have my money. But by her knowing me, she let me have the gas, but I had to leave my driver license.
Yeah? Yes.
Come back and pay her.
Yeah. So next, across the street from there, that was where the Mizell photo studio was.
Exactly, that was.
But prior to the photo studio there used to be a record shop there, I was told. Blues King Record Shop. That was by Mr. Allen. Well, I remember my family being good friends with the Allens talked about that record shop being there.